Hello ladies and mental gen, and it's finally time to give you my thoughts on the tier 10 light tanks and rank them from the shittiest to the best. First of all, I would not recommend anyone grinding any of them because they cost the full price of a tier 10 to research and to unlock, but they aren't really full on tier 10s, so I think that is definitely a thing that needs to change if Wargaming actually wants anybody to grind these. But you know, other than that, another reason why I wouldn't bother ever with these tanks is just that they're annoying as shit to play, and I can forgive, you know, them being worse because, you know, light tanks and whatnot, but tanks that are flat out annoying as shit to play are not good for the game, and these are generally, all of them are like that, maybe with one exception, but we'll get to that soon enough. But yeah, I mean, if you enjoy this kind of gameplay, then you probably should get a light tank, but if you're not an idiot, then you probably shouldn't bother. Anyways, let's start with the shittiest light tank on the list. Alright, so the shittiest tier 10 award goes to the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, the only tank with good accuracy. Gets completely fucked by soft stats for some reason. Wargaming decided that this should have an aiming time that is literally the same as on the IS-7. While on paper it is 1.7, in reality it is nowhere near that. The tank is horribly inaccurate unless you fully aim it, and fully aiming a tank that has absolutely no armor, even against HE, that has a massive, huge profile, is just not something you really want to do in life. And just to illustrate my point, here we have a comparison between an IS-7 and a Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. Both tanks, I mean, this is obviously not a scientific test, but you kind of get the picture on how terrible the aiming gets on the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. The second you start turning the hull, it doesn't even matter how fast you're going. The second you start traversing your hull, your aiming goes to such shit mode, and you generally need around 4 to 5 seconds to re-aim, pretty much the same as on IS-7. And this is pretty much another just terrible design in this game, where the soft stats is a thing where the aiming time 1.9 means literally nothing as long as you can't see the soft stats, and you can't see the soft stats in game, so you have to go out of your way on YouTube or on some other websites to find it. And that should just be reworked, where the aiming time number just shows you how long it takes to aim your gun after traversing your hull and turret, but that just isn't the case. Also, this tank is very prone to flipping, and you don't even need to do this like I did here, where you kind of do it on purpose. This tank has the ability to flip on almost flat ground as well, so it can be extremely annoying, and for this reasons it takes the spot as the shittiest light tank in the game. Alright, so the second shittiest light tank, or the fourth best, is the Sheridan. Extremely oversized, terrible camo, really bad for its role as a recon vehicle. The gun on this is more forgiving. It doesn't need to aim for 6 days, so it is more effective for sure. It does have worse accuracy, but again, like, you don't need to sit there aiming for 9 days, so you trade generally better. The fact that this tank has such an incredibly long hull in front and behind it makes peeking and trading very difficult though, so definitely not a very good vehicle. Once again, the gun is kind of mediocre. The highest DPM on all the light tanks though on this one, so at least it has something going for it, but again, just not a very good vehicle. It does have the derp gun option as well, and it can be okay with the meta now where everybody's kind of playing the light tanks, but the derp gun is just not really good enough to be used on this. Also, because of the high center of gravity, this tank also likes to flip a lot, so that is something to note. And it also can get penned by HE, so yeah, not a big upgrade over the Panzerwagen, but it is definitely slightly better, and statistically I do slightly better in this as well, even though I have derped around in this and not really taking it very seriously. A third spot in the light tank food chain goes to the 13105. Obviously, having an autoloader is an extreme benefit to any tank, and this is no exception. Overall, though, a really shitty version of a Batchet with slightly better camo is the only benefit over the French tier 10 medium. But again, having an autoloader on any tank is very powerful, and no other light tank can really do things like this to other enemy vehicles. So definitely big upgrade over the other two light tanks that we just talked about, but it still gets let down by its poor mobility on traverse. The DPM is obviously absolute garbage there, but the biggest letdown on this tank is just how terrible the gun handling and the accuracy on this is. It can be extremely frustrating to not land those shots with only 3 shots in the mag. If you miss one, you pretty much can't kill anything with this anymore. So definitely very frustrating tank at times to play, but at the same time it is probably the only light tank that I'm ever gonna bother to play after I'm done really with this video. As once again, no other light tank can really do this amount of damage to anything this quickly. So it does have the burst. You do need to be lucky in the way you position it, and just generally be lucky on your RNG in order to make the full use out of this. Alright, so position number 2 goes to the T100 light tank. Thanks to its comic size really, and the incredible mobility, obviously has great camo. The gun on this though, however, is terrible. Only hits for 300. Accuracy obviously is trashed here. It doesn't need to aim very long though, so it is better than the gun on the Rheinmetall, but still, the gun is not definitely not the strong suit of this tank. It is the tiny size and well, just generally ability to put shots down range without aiming a lot at all. So it is kind of hard to damage this vehicle if you are the one shooting at it. And we are left with the best tier 10 light tank in my opinion, the WZ132/1, the Chinese tier 10 light tank. Alpha is king as per usual, and this tank has 390 of it. It also has a reasonably decent front turret. It's a similar armor to the T-54, so it does bounce some shots sometimes. Don't really rely on that much. The gun handling is alright. The accuracy is of course bad, but it is like that on pretty much every light tank that you can play. But just the combination of this alpha damage makes this tank just way better at support than any of the other ones. It is so much more capable of actually hurting your enemies significantly to where they can, where they actually don't want to just, you know, sit there and take it, while the rest of the light tanks are more like a joke when it comes to their ability to do damage, apart from the 13105, which makes that tank also one of my favorites. But again, this gun is king, this tank is king out of all the light tanks. It is the best. And again, I'm gonna go back to what I said at the start of the video. I wouldn't bother grinding a single one of these light tanks unless you already have all the other tanks and literally have nothing better to do with your life, as you do have to grind a full tier 10 grind to end up with a tank that isn't really a proper tier 10 in its regular sense, as on the power level these are more like tier 9 mediums in the matchmaking they get. And that's another thing about these tanks, they do tend to have terrible matchmaking, so that can make them really tricky and annoying to play, especially when you get one of the many tunnel maps in the game. So definitely not the greatest vehicles to grind for, so I would highly recommend you to avoid grinding them. But like, if you really want to at least pick one of the top 3 and avoid the bottom 2, the bottom 2 are really bad. The Rheinmetall especially is a really shitty tier 10 light. Well, the Sheridan is kinda trying to be okay, but it just falls short of the top 3, and by, you know, a fair margin. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.